It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by some of the hottest talent in the entertainment industry, from musicians to authors and all those in between. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Hi. Hello. How are you? Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. Glad to have you with us. Today is the You Are Nothing Show. And I don't mean that as a statement against my listeners. I mean, this is a show which is about the show called You Are Nothing. Mike Stivala, who is an Emmy Award-winning TV producer, director, and editor, was nice enough to get in touch with me and turn me on to his new web series, which is on YouTube right now. It is absolutely hysterical. There's 6 episodes up. You gotta watch them. They're just really funny. He's got an all-star cast: Henry Winkler, Maria Bamford, Joel Bryant, and Tessa Munro. And we have Mike with us today, as well as Joel and Tessa. So 3 interviews to do in this show today, which I'm very excited about. So, not a lot of time to chit-chat. We will be right back with Mike Stivala.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy, right here on the Douglas Coleman Show.
As people go through life and experience moments, they grapple for meaning. But after countless lives, with countless moments, meaning is elusive. Because as the true meaning of speech lies in between words, life's meaning is not in moments. It lies in the nothing. Nothing is the absence of all somethings. Nothing is something non-existent. Nothing is less than zero. This is You Are Nothing.
Okay, please welcome Mike Stivala.
There you go. That's perfect.
Did I say that right? Very good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
All right. Well, I'm happy to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on.
Sure, thanks for having me.
As we were talking about, I really like your show, You Are Nothing. It's different. You know, I like the concept.
Very different. Yes.
Yeah. I like the concept. I like the way it's put together. And I like that it's on YouTube, which is very nice.
That was a specific decision we made. About where the show is going to go.
I know that you put something on YouTube, it's free.
Yes.
And you can make some money off of the elusive YouTube ad revenue share.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, but
exactly. Someone told me, and I think I've read somewhere, it works out to about 60 cents per 1,000 views that you get. That's basically what it works out to.
60 cents per 1,000 views. Okay.
Per 1,000 views, yeah.
I've seen different people's theories about how the thing works, and they said it's a ratio. It's not just straight views. It's a ratio between views, between subscribers.
Yes, and the retention as well.
Retention between likes and comments, and also how long the people have been subscribed to you.
That's true. That's very true. And all of that also plays into whether people can even find you on YouTube. Honestly, like if you just put a video up, it could be the greatest video in the world. But if you don't have at least 100+ subscribers, if people aren't watching your videos all the way through, that retention thing, you're not even going to show up when people search, even if they search for the actual name of the video. You're not even gonna show up.
It's crazy. I mean, artists I know, musical artists, that try to get their song or something on the front page of iTunes. I mean, good luck. You know?
Yeah, good luck with that. Yeah.
That's their dream, is like to be on the front page of iTunes. And
yeah, I would imagine people work it or pay very highly for those positions, right? That's what I would think anyway.
I think the major labels have got that position locked up. I mean, even with the amount of sort of mojo and power that the major labels have lost over the years thanks to the internet, they still have dominance in where their music gets placed. on websites and things.
True.
You know.
That's true. And I'm sure part of that deal with iTunes that they all made includes, I'm sure this was included in that, like where they're placed and all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Justin Bieber made $7 million off the YouTube ad revenue share. Okay.
Wow.
Now, I know that he negotiated a different rate than 60 cents per thousand.
I would imagine so too.
Yeah. 60 cents per thousand is probably for everyone else. For him, he got a different rate because
I'm sure he got a different rate, and I'm sure they didn't pay him in Canadian dollars.
Because he would have just said, hey, if you don't want my video, we'll put it on
exactly
somewhere else.
Guys or people or acts like that that have that kind of juice, they can say that. They can say, well, you know what? I'll put my video up on my own website. I won't put it on YouTube.
Exactly.
Guys like us, we can't do that. Us indie producer, content creator types, we can't do that. If I went to YouTube and said I'm going to take it somewhere else, they would just shrug.
Well, have a nice day is probably
exactly. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, the response you get. Okay, so tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get to You Are Nothing.
I am a guy originally from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I sort of grew up in coal country and moved to New York as soon as I graduated college because I wanted to work in TV, and started off as an editor, won an Emmy Award or two, got to be a really good editor, was kind of sought after back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then started doing some producing and directing for other people, and eventually started doing my own stuff. I actually did a feature film a while ago called Rat Bastard that, was a little tiny indie film, but went to festivals and won some awards and stuff. And, then came You Are Nothing, which actually started as another project, by the way. And it's a very, very kind of interesting, almost convoluted story as to how the project ended up here, how it is here and now.
No, well, tell us the story.
Okay. So, is back in about 2008, I had this idea to do something kind of interesting and very sort of high end. Something I pitched it to my executive producer, Jody Whitehouse, as imagine something that you'd see on HBO, but made specifically for the internet. That is, smaller episodes, sort of a smaller story arc, that sort of thing. So I got to writing and I developed this project called Hillers. And Hillers was basically about a guy whose life goes completely to crap, and what happens to him and the people around him that are affected by this. So what we did was we actually raised some money, very little money. Again, this is now back in 2009, 2010. And the plan was to raise enough money to shoot half of season one. Hillers season one was like 10 episodes. And we did that. We did it very, very indie, very on the cheap. I'd be very surprised if we had about 10 grand, to be honest with you, for the entire production. Ended up doing that, shot half of our first season, put a package together, cut a trailer, cut the episodes, started sending it out to people. And, from our end, the idea was, well, we'll show this to people. And then once we show what we can do and how good it is, we'll get money so we can finish the rest of season one. And what ended up happening was everybody who saw it loved it and everybody who saw it wanted it, but there was no money. And this is sort of back in the infancy of what we'd consider sort of this web series or web video content kind of world. There wasn't a lot of people that were really doing things like You Are Nothing, or, there was a couple of gamer guys that were doing some stuff, but there was nothing really like this. So no one really knew what to make of it. And like I said, we could not get any money. So we were actually approached by a production company in Los Angeles, and we spent a couple of years repackaging it and pitching it to television. We did fairly well, I guess. We got it. We were able to get in the door and pitch it to places like HBO and Showtime and 20th Century Fox and FX and USA. But everybody passed on it. It wasn't quite right. It wasn't, that's just how TV works. So then the project just went, it was just a bunch of files on my hard drive on my home editing system. And I went on to do a couple of other things, and everybody else went their ways. And then about a year and a half ago, I was just clearing out my drive and I saw some of this footage, and especially, the scenes we had with Henry Winkler and a lot of the stuff with Joel and Tessa, who are great actors in their own right. Oh, yeah. And I said, what I do for a living, separate from this stuff, is I produce and edit other people's stuff. And I said to myself, I take other people's crap and turn it into like decent TV all the time. Like, surely I can make something out of this. So spent about 6 months playing around with some different ideas, some different concepts, and finally landed on this concept of doing sort of a parody of a self-help video. Because actually in the original Hillers script, there was a self-help video that kind of played a little bit of a role, if you will, with respect to the main character. So I just used that as a launching point and then just sort of went with it. And that's how we've come right now to You Are Nothing, to the 6 episodes that make up season 1.
Okay, so now when I watched it, the concept of nothing, immediately I thought of Eastern philosophy. Now, I don't know if that's where you got that from, or that was what inspired the idea.
During my research, I actually watched so many Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, meditation, self-help. Whoever's monitoring my computer activity must have thought I was completely insane, because this is all I watched for months. And it's sort of in a weird way, it's sort of a combination of some of these philosophies, but it's also, to be perfectly honest with you, at its core, really a parody of a lot of this self-help culture. Really, where people kind of search for easy answers to problems that really aren't that simple. And in another respect, to people that sort of make a living or whatever, make their fame peddling these sort of simple answers to not so simple questions. No, I just thought it was ripe for parody. That's really all.
That's sort of hence Henry's character in that,
Yes, exactly. It's the funny thing about Henry is, again, you'd never in the world think a production our size would get someone like Henry Winkler. We were fortunate enough to be able to get him the script, and he actually loved the character. He loved the character. He loved that scene, that scene that he did with Joel, and just agreed to do it for literally next to nothing. He's like the greatest guy ever. Honestly, he's just a guy who just loves to work and loves to stay working and loves to work on interesting stuff.
I rolled over laughing when there was that one scene where he says, "Oh, your name is Dr. whatever," and he takes the name tag off the desk and says, "Well, technically in this country, you can't call me doctor."
Yes. If you notice on his nameplate, the word doctor is in quotes. It's like, because you can't call him doctor in this country. Yeah.
I thought that was hysterical. Now, let me go back to something you said. When you were pitching this around originally on TV, obviously it would have had to have been longer because these are only 8 minutes apiece.
Yes. And it was very different as well. It was a very, very different project. It wasn't the version of this, the version of Hillers that we pitched to TV was a 30-minute long comedy drama that really centered on the main character and the town that he lived in. Not only his life deteriorating, but the entire town deteriorating. And someone comes in on a white horse to sort of save the town, but he's got ulterior motives. It was a very, very different project.
Well, poor Joel. I mean, his character, I really relate to him. We've all had those days.
It's funny you would say that, because all the people I talk to about the project, about half of them say, "Oh my God, I so relate to this." And about another half say, "Oh my God, seriously? This guy never gets a break? Really?" Like I can't, they almost feel bad for him.
Oh, you totally pity the guy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've got this on YouTube, which, like I said, I really like that idea. Where do you take it after YouTube? I mean, what do you do with it?
Oh my God, that's the best question for the greatest segue ever, because we're actually, the whole YouTube thing was an experiment for us. I wanted to see if I could generate some kind of an audience with sort of an offbeat scripted project on YouTube, because the conventional wisdom, at least from the people I had talked to, was like, that really isn't the place for something like this. A lot of the videos, a lot of the things you see on YouTube, there are these men and women, doing basically vlogging. essentially.
Yeah.
You know, and their personalities, and I mean, God bless them. Some of these people have, you know, worked it and built channels of 30, 40 million subscribers.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But this project wasn't typically the type of thing that you would think would gain some kind of an audience on YouTube. But I just wanted to try it. Because, you know, I come from a television film production background. A lot of the work that I do, you see on cable TV, network TV, etc. I firmly believe that the future of my business is on the internet. I mean, how is it not? You know, you sort of even see that now with like things like Netflix and Hulu and Sling TV and all of this other stuff. It's going to evolve into, and in many cases it already is there, where your computer is connected to your TV and you surf the internet for whatever you want to watch and you watch it on your television. You know, that's where it's going to go. So people like me and people like the people who I work with who produce cable network television, we have to figure out how to make this work for us. We know what I mean? We have to crack this nut, this YouTube nut, this online video nut of how do we build an audience and eventually how do we monetize it. So that was the reason I wanted to go on YouTube. I just wanted to see if I could make it work. With a short form scripted thing. I actually enlisted the help of a YouTube expert. I actually reached out to somebody who, makes a living on doing YouTube videos, had them come in and sort of consult a little about how we should format the shows and what we should do at the end and what the YouTube page should look like and that sort of thing. But I'm kind of happy with the way it turned out. I mean, we've got over 200 subscribers. I was hoping for 100. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I think for us it is. And the channel has over 40,000 views right now. So that's kind of good as well.
Sure.
But but answering your original question, which I think you asked me 30 minutes ago, right now we're actually talking to a couple of outlets that more specialize in this kind of content, this sort of short form scripted web series type thing. And we're probably going to end up having a couple announcements over the next couple of weeks as to where the series is going to go. You know, it may stay on YouTube and may be on these places. In addition, it may come off YouTube and go on these places exclusively. That's all to be determined. But the next step of the distribution of You Are Nothing is probably going to happen within the next couple of weeks.
Well, so if you go over to one of these other places, is it going to be a subscription-based thing? People are going to have to pay to watch it? Or is it still going to be free?
Honestly, I'm trying to avoid that. The goal of this project was to just get as many people to watch it. You know, we had, like, when I had mentioned how we've come to this point, you know, we shot this 6, 7, 8 years ago. We've long wrote off the money we spent on this. So this was sort of like a loss leader for me, for my company, just sort of like a statement. Hey, here's the kind of things that we do. So I'm interested in just as many people seeing it as humanly possible. I would prefer it not be put behind a paywall. That having been said, these folks that run these websites, these streaming services, they need to make a couple of bucks too. It really just depends on where it's going to go.
Well, this is the whole dilemma with the internet, and not just with people like you who are creating shows, but musicians, you know, anybody who's putting anything on the internet in a entertainment context.
Yes.
People have this real adversity to paying for anything that's on the
true.
Internet. And I think it just started out because at one point everything was free. You'd put it out there, you'd put your video out there, you'd put your song out there. You know, people don't have this same, like in the old days when people used to buy records. Mm-hmm. You knew you had to go to the store, buy the record if you wanted to hear the music. That was your only option. Okay, well, once MTV came out, people saw the video, they heard the music. It was free, basically. Yeah. If it was on TV, it's free. I think that attitude has just sort of transcended to the internet, only it's now faster because you can click on anything you want.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. People it's so hard to get people, even people who love your work, love your show, to even pay 99 cents for something. People, they just don't want to do it. It's very, very tough to get people to open their wallets and swipe their credit cards or whatever. Very tough.
Like musicians, it's gone from buying records to buying CDs to downloads individual songs for $1. And now people don't even want to do that. They want to stream it on Spotify for a penny.
Yeah, exactly.
A penny, And you hear these musicians work, months and months and months. And you obviously put a lot of work into your show. Watching that wasn't something you just knocked up with a handy cam in 10 minutes.
No, it was not.
And, people just don't want to pay for it. And I don't know how to get around that idea in people's head. It's something that I've discussed with people.
I think we're all looking for that answer. Like, how do you get people to do it? I think there's some bigger companies who are getting people to do it. Like Netflix is certainly getting people to do it. Hulu is, places like that are definitely getting people to do it, but they're spending a gazillion dollars, to buy all of this amazing content. That's why people are doing it. It's so much more difficult if you're just an indie creator and you want to just put your stuff out there, even just to make the money back that you put into it, even just to make 5, 10, 15 grand back. It's kind of impossible at the way it is right now.
Well, somebody like Netflix, okay, they've got this vast library of content, most of which is classic movies that people were accustomed to paying for. Mm-hmm. Even back in the days like Blockbuster. Remember them when you'd go rent?
I do. I do remember Blockbuster.
Okay.
Yes.
So, people were sort of accustomed to paying for those types of things. Now what Netflix can do is they can have all of that stuff on there. They charge you for that. And then they can throw in a new indie series also in there.
Yeah.
But people have just become accustomed to paying for the old stuff, but they're not really wanting to pay for the new stuff.
Yeah, you may be right. Yeah, we've become sort of a culture that just sort of assumes in some respects that we're going to get our entertainment for free. And that model of putting stuff out there for free and having advertisers pay is so much more difficult to negotiate, especially for like a small company or an indie creator. It's virtually impossible, because it just takes too much legwork. It takes too much effort. It just is. So yeah, you're right. And the answer of how do we get people to start doing some of this, to start paying a couple of bucks for some things that they actually like, I don't know. You look at some projects that get funded on places like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. There's some people that have had some success there, and there's also another, I'm spacing on the name right now, Patron, I think it's called, another sort of pay-as-you-go for your creator type website that's also starting to have a little success. So maybe things are starting to change a little bit, perhaps, but I don't know. That remains to be seen.
I've never been a big fan of those pay-as-you-go, Indiegogo, whatever, only because, well, two reasons. Number one, I've seen bands on there begging for money so that they can buy amplifiers and buy guitars. And as far as I'm concerned, if you want to be considered a musician in a professional capacity, those are tools of the trade. To me, that's like a plumber showing up at your door when you called him for a clogged toilet. And he says, hey, can you pay me up front so I can go buy a plunger so I can fix your toilet? No, you're supposed to have that stuff already ready to go. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the first
true.
one.
Yes.
The second one is that it really is the online equivalent of busking. It's the guy on the street corner with the guitar and the case open and, hey, come on, I got to eat today. I hate to use the word demeaning, but for me, it would be.
Yeah, I am not really a fan either, only because I was involved in one of those sort of online fundraising things that just was a complete disaster. So I'm not a fan of it for that reason. But yeah, I can see your point, and people do say things like that. However, though, to your first point, some of these projects are getting funded this way.
Well, it's true. I mean, I'm not saying it isn't successful. I've seen people who have made, thousands and thousands of dollars. It started out a little different, though. It started out as people raising money for things like, my kid needs cancer surgery.
Yeah, my kid needs a kidney or something.
Right.
Yes,
it started out as a very humble beginning, and now it's just becoming like Kanye begging for $53 million from Mark Zuckerberg.
It's also taken a turn away from, or it's starting to take a turn away from the more creative endeavors, and it's also almost becoming like a venture capital place for people looking to start businesses. I mean, that's like when I go to on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, that's Indiegogo especially, that's almost all I see are people looking to start businesses. They need money to manufacture this amazing new product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, good luck to them, I guess.
Good luck. Exactly. I hope it works out well.
Yeah. It's that Hollywood answer.
It's not really the way I want to go. It's not.
I don't want to beg people for money. I don't want people to have to pay for my show directly. At least not yet.
Oh, here's the other thing. I'm sorry. Here's the other thing. When the folks at these websites, they want you to believe that you're going to put up your project and random people are going to throw money at you because it's the most awesome project in the world. And the fact of the matter is that's not really the case. That's not really how, when you look at projects that have been successful, that's not really how it works. It really just works best as a place where people who are already sold on your project and who want to invest, it's one place for them all to go. You know what I mean? It's right. Like this whole notion that random people are going to find you and love you so much and give you money. These funding sites really don't work that way.
No. And if you have a loyal core audience following and you want to start charging them and assuming that they're willing to pay, you can stick a PayPal's button right on your website and they can pay you like that.
That's the way I would go too.
Yeah.
I agree.
Let me bring up one other thing here, and then we've got to kind of wrap this up. But it was something interesting on your bio. It says, for 2 years, you were a showrunner for a paranormal show called Ghost Stories on the Travel Channel. I've actually seen that show. That's where they go to the haunted houses and try to get the ghosts to come out of the closet.
No, that's not. That's Ghost Hunters.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
My show is a much smaller show. It was a show where we basically every week told a ghost story. It's sort of the TV equivalent of your creepy uncle sitting you down and trying to scare you by telling you something creepy and weird.
Oh, I see. Now, what is a showrunner? That was really the question. I had no idea what that is.
Yeah, a showrunner is basically the person who is in charge of the show day to day. He or she is the person who's in the office planning the shoots, writing the scripts, or supervising the writing of the scripts. He or she is also the person who goes out on the shoots, directs the shoots, works with the talent. It's basically the one person who is hands-on in charge of the entire production.
That's not the director?
The showrunner, it depends how big the project is. The showrunner would hire a director and be on the shoot with the director. But in some cases, like in the world of sort of mid-level cable TV, the showrunner in many instances is the director.
I see. Okay. But that wouldn't be the producer then?
Well, the showrunner is also the main producer of the show as well. And again, he or she hires other producers to help out and to do what they do. Yeah.
To be honest, when I heard showrunner, I thought it was the guy who got the coffee, who ran the errands, who did the runner.
That would be a runner.
Right.
Yes.
So I thought, well, okay, that's a good place to start. But then, when you told me this, I mean, it sounds like the producer and the director all rolled into one.
Yeah, that's again, at that level of cable TV production, that's basically what it is. It's the main producer / director / writer. And it's also one other thing. It's also the person who's the main face of the show to the network. You know what I mean? So like if the network has a problem or wants to give notes on the show, they would talk to me and I would disseminate it to my people.
They got to come up with a better title than showrunner. Really?
Well, it's the person who runs the show. The term showrunner is really sort of an inside TV thing. You won't ever see showrunner on credits. the showrunner is usually credited as either a co-executive producer or a supervising producer or an executive producer, one of those.
Well, that's better. I was thinking chief vice president of administration or something a little more glorious, you know?
Something more, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Mike, listen, we are out of time for this interview, but this was a lot of fun talking to you.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. It flew by too. And thank you very much. Appreciate your time and your help with us getting the word out about You Are Nothing.
The show is called You Are Nothing, and it is now on YouTube. You've got, how many episodes are out now? 5, 6?
6.
Okay.
6, and 6 is the entire first season. So you could actually go right now on YouTube and watch it from beginning to end. And because it's an internet thing, it's short. The episodes are like 7-ish minutes long.
So an hour and you can get through the whole thing.
Exactly.
Okay. The website is youtube.com/You Are Nothing Show. Please check it out. Mike, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Douglas.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Ooh, don't know my own strength.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome Tessa Munro. Hi, Tessa. How are you?
Thank you. Hi, Douglas. I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Doing very well. I went online and looked for a bio for you, and all I could find was Tessa Munro is an actor and producer known for Fixing Rhonda, 99 Cent Bond, and CSY.
Well, that's just from IMDb. They limit.
Well, yeah.
what they decide to throw in.
I'm sure there's a lot more to your life than just that. So perhaps you could tell us just a little bit.
Then it gives a little bit more than that, too. But yes, I think my Twitter account says that I'm a life enthusiast, and I also appreciate philanthropy and dancing or something like that. I'm not sure. Yeah, my mom is actually born and raised in Haiti.
Oh.
So Haiti is like a second home to me. But I was mainly raised in the Washington, D.C. area, although I was born in Peru and lived in Venezuela until I was almost 5 before that. So I'm kind of a child of the world. I've always loved performing and started out really doing dance as a child, all forms of dance, from Haitian folklore, which is African-based dance, to classical ballet, jazz, tap, character dancing, and so on. Now I live in LA.
And now you live in LA. Okay, what was the first professional gig that you had?
It's funny. It depends on what I'm going to count. Because when I was 9 years old, I actually did a regional commercial in the Washington, D.C. area with Lauren Tweez, who used to be Julie McCoy on the Love Boat back then.
Yeah.
But if you don't count that, then I did get paid to do theater right after I graduated from college. So that was paid acting work. And then I started hosting educational videos for PBS, which was also paid acting work right out a few months after I graduated from college. That was a show called Standard Deviants TV.
I suppose in this business, in the acting business, any paid gig would be considered a professional engagement.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, granted, that commercial I did when I was 9, I'm not kidding, I was given $1.
$1. Wow.
$1. It was obviously non-union. The advertising agency contact, she was actually my friend's mother. And she said, I feel like you should get paid for this. I'll give you $1. And I was thrilled. I was like, wow, I made $1 acting. Times have changed.
Do you still have the $1? Did you put it in a frame on the wall?
I did not. I probably spent it on a stuffed animal or something.
Tell me a little bit about Fixing Rhonda. That sounds like an interesting movie. I just read the bio of the movie.
That was actually the first time that I was a lead in a feature film, and it was based on a true story. The writer, producer, Lizzie Maxwell, who's an amazing human being, it was based on her story, and I essentially played her in the film when she was in her 20s. And her best friend was murdered really, really horrifically. And she tried to find out who the killer was, essentially. I mean, the police, went after it too, but she really did her own kind of investigating. And so it is a dark story, but I think moving, or I'd like to think. And it was an incredible learning experience for me. And John Aniston plays the detective in it, and it was such a joy working with him. We've crossed paths since, and he's just such a sweetheart.
The other one you were in that I did watch the trailer was 99 Cent Bond. It looks hysterical.
It's a short film I did. That was really fun. And I got to beat up some ninjas.
I saw that. Yeah,
you
were
tough, Bond girl. That was a good time. It was a comedic spoof on Bond. When I'm first seen, it's when a building is blowing up, and oh no, that's the end. Actually, the last bit. Never mind. But a building blows up, and while it's blowing up, I cartwheel out of it, which was really actually kind of my style.
The whole concept of Bond when he's not 007 works at a 99-cent store. I mean, that just in itself is hysterical. That whole premise.
Yeah, that was just a tremendously fun shoot. And the stunt people on it were great. The people playing the ninjas actually could do some amazing flips and so on. But I had still fun kicking them or pretending to.
From watching the trailer, it seemed like there was a lot of production value for just an 8-minute film.
A surprising amount. That's true. Because a lot of short films don't quite get that level of effects too. Yes, it was well done, which I had nothing to do with in terms of the production side. I was impressed with it too. Thanks.
Well, yeah, and considering, again, I'm looking at the stat sheet here, and it says budget was $10,000, which, let's face it, is not a lot of money to make a movie. But what the result was, at least from the trailer, it looked tremendous. For 8 minutes long, that movie has got to move pretty quickly, I would think.
Well, sure, yeah. It packs a punch and hopefully a bunch of laughs. And, it was a good time.
Now, as an actor, are you more comfortable doing comedy, or are you more comfortable doing drama, or?
I'm comfortable doing either. I find that, doing comedy is more fun, but it's actually, I think, more difficult, but still more fun, because the beats have to be so precise and timing is so crucial. Although also editors with a comedic understanding can do brilliant work in regards to timing, but still you want to get it precisely right on set. So I'm comfortable with either. But when you're doing a dark piece, it certainly puts you in a different place in general in your life, and you have to try to shake it off in a different way than if you're doing a comedic piece. I worked actually on a comedy earlier this year. It's a feature film called Brand New Old Love, directed and written by Kat Reinhardt, who's so wonderful and such a great writer. And Aya Cash, who's from You're the Worst, is the lead in it, along with Arturo Castro, who's actually in Ang Lee's new upcoming film. And I can't wait to see how it came out, because the script was so funny. And on set, I have a smaller role opposite Arturo, but on set, he was so brilliant and so funny and doing different improv takes too. And already on top of a wonderful script. So I really enjoy comedy. There's nothing quite like making people laugh.
Well, the one thing about doing a comedy movie that I've heard from other actors is that your timing, what you just mentioned about timing to get the punchline just right, can be fixed in editing. But as an actor, you're not quite sure if you ever got it because there's no audience to laugh at you.
In that moment, that's true.
Yeah.
That being said, you can generally tell after they yell cut if the crew is cracking up or not, So there is some kind of, and you also you feel if you're in the zone. You feel it. And you can tell by the look in the director's eye, even if they're not verbally that expressive, depending on who you're working with. So you do get some feedback. It's not the same as theater where it's immediate, and theater. I adore theater. I adore that immediate, whatever happens right then is you have to stay in that moment, and it's going to be, there's no going back. You have to make it work,
right.
Whatever's happening. So that really keeps you on your toes, which I love. And I think all actors should do some theater, even at some point, even if they haven't, because it really does change you as an actor. And I really started out mainly doing theater when I was younger too. And I still do it from time to time. I love it so much. It's just a different kind of time commitment and not as lucrative too, unfortunately, generally.
I just had Monica Patton on the show, who is in the Broadway show Book of Mormon.
Mm-hmm. I love Book of Mormon. Uh-huh.
And we got into this conversation about, how theater is such a good discipline for actors because it's a completely different animal than doing a film. Yes. It really does keep you fresh. And what you just said about once the audience reaction, that kind of is your juice for that show. If you get a great audience, it sort of propels you into a place, where you can be really, really on. If you get kind of a dud audience, it might change the way you feel for the rest of the show when you're doing it.
It's true. Yeah. It's amazing how different one night can feel from the next, depending on the audience. It is a relationship. The energy flows back and forth.
Exactly.
Between the actors on stage and the audience.
Right.
Absolutely. It's an interesting dynamic. It can also be frustrating because you, especially if someone that you care about, a friend or something, has come a night that it feels off, and even if they enjoyed it, you're like, no, but it was so much better last night. But that's the give and take with theater. You have to accept it is what it is, and there's no second take for that evening.
Right, exactly. Let's get to You Are Nothing. Actually, this show started out as something else, didn't it? It started out as Hillers.
It did. That's correct.
Now, how is it different? I assume you've seen the You Are Nothing episodes, right?
I have, yes. Mm-hmm.
How is it different from Hillers?
Well, it's a different tone because of Maria Bamford's, her VO and the animation that they added. It definitely tells a different version, and it's longer and it's than the original. But it's hard to describe the differences in tone if you haven't seen the former one. But it's funny because I feel like this version is actually, even though it comes down to then You Are Nothing and how you're feeling, I don't feel like it's quite as dark as the last version, even though they're both comedic too. But I feel like with the animation added and the voiceover, that this gives a little different twinkle to it. For lack of a better word.
Okay, well, I like that word. That works out fine. I've never seen Hillers. I only am going by what Mike Stivala told me about the show. So I'm just amazed that they could take one show and sort of add this and add that and chop it up and essentially kind of make a new show out of it, which I think is
the brilliance of editing.
Yeah, which I think is pretty amazing.
And adding some animation and some voiceover. It's incredible. What Mike has done is really remarkable.
Well, You Are Nothing is very funny. I watched the 6 episodes that are up, and it's exactly my type of humor. It's that kind of pathetic sort of humor that I like. Along the movie that comes to mind in that style of humor is Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, and it's just that kind of humor, which I really love. Well, let me get to your character. You play BMW Girl, which...
also known as Nothing.
As Nothing, right. Now, it's interesting because in the first episode, you show up at Mitch Raptor, who is played by Joel Bryant, at his place of employment looking for a job. You're there for a job interview. And you have an encounter in the parking lot. And then it cuts to a next scene. But then you keep reappearing. And we're not quite sure if you keep reappearing in his mind or if you're a ghost or exactly what you are. But you keep reappearing rather... Well, you're not wearing much. You're wearing a red bikini through most of it.
Parts of it. I don't know if you noticed a scene where I walk by and I'm wearing a leather jacket.
Oh, no, I didn't see that part. I just remember the part you popped out of the poster in a convenience store and then...
that is, the bikini I still own. Yep.
And then you popped up in Henry Winkler's office when Joel was just leaving at that point. And then at the end, you pop up in Joel's house and you give him a big kiss.
And see, in there I'm wearing a dress. Hey.
Oh, you are? Okay.
The perspective on Nothing / BMW Girl, because I'm called Nothing technically, I think, in the new version, but I was BMW Girl in the Hillers version, is really up to the audience. It's what you believe, how much he's created me, and how much and how real I am.
That's
his psychological spin and what I'm why I'm there as in his world, what I'm trying to get out of him.
Now, did you have to do any additional scenes, or is everything that we're seeing originally part of Hiller's?
Everything was originally part of Hiller's. Part of it, the main portion of it, we shot in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and then the footage with Henry Winkler, who is just sweet as pie, it was shot here in LA, but it was all for the original Hiller's.
So it's going to be interesting to see what Mike comes up with for season 2.
Love to hear more about it. So, let me know if you hear anything.
Well, Tessa, we are out of time for the interview, unfortunately, but thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. I enjoyed working on You Are Nothing, and I hope people get a kick out of it.
Go listen, download, and subscribe to The Douglas Coleman Show. It's available at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS. Also on iTunes, Spreaker, and YouTube. The Douglas Coleman Show is an internationally syndicated talk and music show that features fascinating and sometimes famous guests from all aspects of the entertainment industry. The topics can range from light and fluffy to sober and serious. Our focus is on music artists, but we also feature producers, authors, directors, and even promoters. The Douglas Coleman Show. Sometimes chat, sometimes music, always entertaining. Again, it's available today at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS. You can also connect with them on Facebook at Douglas Coleman Show 1, follow on Twitter at Douglas Coleman 3, and you can even find them on TuneIn Radio. Again, that's the Douglas Coleman Show at the website douglascolemanmusic.com/DCS, iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube, and more. Go listen, download, subscribe, and share with your social networks today.
Okay, please welcome Joel Bryant. Hi, Joel. How are you?
I'm good. How's everything there?
Oh, not bad. Not bad at all. You're in LA now?
I am, yes. Just got back. I was in Chicago traveling around doing some events and back in LA for 2 days.
Before we get to You Are Nothing, and I do want to talk about that, but I just want to cover a couple of points on your bio, which I thought were real interesting.
Oh, good. Shoot.
Okay. Now it says, you were born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you started out as a stand-up comedian. Is that correct?
I did. Well, I started acting when I was 11 and kind of got the bug there. And then right when I was 16, I decided I wanted to do stand-up comedy. So I had my mom take me to a few open mics in Albuquerque. And so I started when I was 16 and a half years old doing stand-up.
Were you writing your own material, I guess?
I was writing my own material, and it was quite a learning curve because the first time I went up, it was fantastic. And the second time I went up, I changed everything and thought I could do politics, political humor, and impressions, and I wasn't very good at that. So it was a roller coaster to begin with.
A lot of people just get their stuff from real life, oh, this happened to me while I was on the airplane or something like that. But then there's other ones that get really, I don't know, heavy and philosophical. Where were you with your material?
I was very much, and it was kind of helpful to be the young guy in the club because I started doing it regularly. And it was very helpful because my voice, which is what you always want to find as a stand-up, what are you bringing to the stage? My voice at that time was just inexperienced and young and, what's this drinking I've heard so much of? And, ooh, girls are scary. I mean, it was, obviously a bit of a hyperbole, but still it was very easy to write jokes like that because everybody had been there before. So you always want to associate with the audience. So, I kind of really played the innocence card up when I was younger. Yeah, then I got back into it in my late 20s. I quit for a while and got back into it in my late 20s and tried the same material, and it wasn't as successful at the start because obviously I had lived a little bit. So that led you to TV and film. What did you do? Where did you go from there after the stand-up? Yeah, that was TV and film. My first, I was doing some theater in New Mexico, Albuquerque, and then my first TV spot was an episode of Unsolved Mysteries when I was 18, playing a cop whose partner got shot. So, being on set and getting paid for it and everything was fantastic. And so from then I went to Pepperdine University out here in Malibu on a theater scholarship. And the bug, once I realized it could be a theater major and it could be a career and everything else, then it was all downhill from there. You mentioned Unsolved Mysteries. I love that show. I think that was great. That was with AJ Benza. This was back in the Robert Stack days. Oh, okay. The real early one. Yeah. Oddly enough, I've actually done it twice. I did one of the AJ Benza episodes as well as husband whose daughter was kidnapped, and I'm one of the rare actors who had a recurring role on Unsolved Mysteries.
Robert Stack, he was another great one. What a voice he had.
Oh, he was fantastic. Yeah. And it was, it was fun because they still play that episode of my partner getting shot, even though the guy, they caught the guy, he's been behind bars, but every once in a while I'll still get a check for 18 cents. And I just feel bad if you have to watch your episode while you're behind bars.
You were also the Orange County Fair pie eating champion.
One of my more notable accomplishments, yes. Last year I won I signed up for it. I was there with some friends, signed up for it on a fluke, and got very competitive about it. When I sign up for something, I'm going to win it. And so, I kind of manipulated the audience and manipulated the pie correctly with my face, and got some inside tidbits on how to win a pie eating contest, and took home the ribbon.
What flavor of pie was it?
It was boysenberry, and you would be surprised. It's initially really good until it's stuck in your facial hair for the next 3 days. Then you kind of get sick of boysenberry.
Did you get a trophy or some cash or something for that?
That's probably the biggest letdown. It was literally just a ribbon, and I thought, well, that's a lot of work for stomach ache. That's not worth it.
Oh, that's terrible. I mean, if you'd got a check for $1,000 or something and a trophy, that would have been worth it.
That's true, and it probably would have led me down a whole different path, and I probably would have been twice as heavy now because I thought, wow, you can make money eating pies. It was a big letdown at the end. So
I was just going to say you'd probably be 400 pounds by now.
That's right, exactly.
All right, well, let's get to You Are Nothing. Now, I know the show started out as a different show. It started out as Hillers, and then Mike, through his very brilliant editing, created a whole new show out of the footage from Hillers. Now, how did you hook up with Mike? How did you meet Mike and get involved with the original Hillers?
I did it just off of a casting notice, and I want to say it was they have a magazine out here called Backstage. It was Backstage West at the time. It just lists all sorts of casting notices, and as an actor, you'd buy it every Thursday and thumb through it and kind of circle things and mail things off. And it was literally just out of a one casting notice out of this actor's rag out here. I think it was probably 3 or 4 rounds of auditions. I don't think they were 100% sold on me, but they kept calling me back. And eventually when I got it, I was over the moon. It's one of those things where you go into it and you kind of want it, but then the more they call you back, it's like a pie eating contest. You get more competitive about it. And so you start really wanting it the more they keep calling you back. So I was lucky enough to get it, and met Mike and Jody at the auditions. And the original script too, I love what they did with it, with the reboot, the re-edit of it. But the original script was also brilliant. Like, it was just one of those roles where you really want it once you read the whole script, and how can you say no to them? Especially because what a sweet group to work with. So.
Well, I asked Tessa this question. I'll ask you the same question. What was different about Hillers than You Are Nothing? How do they differ?
Hillers, I think, was more of a narrative, a story. It was more Mitch's journey from this kind of bigger town, humdrum, office drone life that you still see in You Are Nothing. The same, most of same footage in both projects, but the way it was edited was more narrative. So it was more his story. What we shot was essentially the pilot episode of first season, if it was a web series, where it was him kind of going through the motions of life and trouble at home and, having delusions of Tessa and everything else. And then it would end, which You Are Nothing also ends there, I believe, on the last episode. It would end with him leaving town and then going to a smaller town where the quote unquote Hillers live. And it's just a middle management guy stuck in a small town, kind of a northern exposure kind of vibe to it, is what the initial shot was.
Okay, because I watched the 6 episodes of You Are Nothing, and I think the last episode ends with you smooching with Tessa.
Ends with me smooching with Tessa,
Yeah.
And then I believe if you watch past the credits, because I really saw this, he's in a car driving away.
Oh, okay. I'll have to watch that again, because I got lost in the smooch scene, and that was the end of it for me, I think.
Yeah, and watch through the credits. I think the smooch thing works for You Are Nothing because it's the culmination of everything. You kind of finally get what you want when you let everything go. And in that, and in Hillers, it was the impetus for him to symbolically achieve what he wanted. So the last shot is him driving in a car through the hills of Pennsylvania off to who knows where, but away from his old life. So the original was more of a narrative story about, I guess, a big small fish in a bigger pond going to be a big fish in a small pond sort of thing. Whereas You Are Nothing takes a more surreal approach to it.
Well, I love the character, Mitch Repter. I think a lot of people can relate to him.
He is very much the everyman, especially when you surround him with the kind of characters Mike surrounded him with. And the actors that pulled it off are very, very charactery, very, just kind of archetypes of what you would see every day. So it was fun to play kind of someone who's annoyed at everybody around him. He just doesn't suffer fools, even though he's a fool himself.
Well, it was like everyone was annoying him. He wasn't annoying at all. He was just trying to get through his day. And everybody, the one scene that I particularly liked was when you were walking through the park and you're eating, I don't know, a donut or something. And you encounter your sister and her husband, and they're jogging in place the whole time during the conversation. I just thought that whole thing was hysterical.
Yeah, and they pulled it off, and those two pulled it off. Michael and Nicole pulled it off fantastic. I mean, it was a lot of fun to play that kind of character, to be thrown in these different scenarios with these actors, and they just never broke, and you really felt like they were just trying to push your buttons the whole time, So a lot of those reactions are very real, where I kind of give Michael a sideways glance, like, why are you still jogging and walking in place? So it was a blast to play, because they actually, on camera, they kind of annoyed me, not as people, obviously, but as characters. So to be kind of annoyed and have these people thrown at you constantly for, the whole shooting process, it wasn't a big stretch to look at him sideways.
Well, some of the best comedy in the world had that formula, where you had sort of the straight guy who just went through all this crazy shtick that was going on around him. And, all he had to do was just sort of look up at the ceiling or put his hands up or something like that. And that would be the capper of the whole scene,
Yeah. And that kind of character, that's the everyman. That's the, that goes way back to ancient theater. And that's the window to allow everybody else to see his life, because everybody can associate. If you were there and your sister and her husband were doing that and jogging in place, and everybody would react the same way. And that was kind of the basis of it. Like, here's the everyman, and here's a extenuating set of circumstances over and over again. Mitch is really the character I think everybody can associate with, and that's why I think You Are Nothing works the way they re-edited it as a self-help series, because that's kind of everybody's in Mitch's shoes.
Oh, exactly.
Good job of that.
Okay, I want to ask you about Henry. We've run out of time here, but what was it like working with Henry Winkler?
I was really good friends with Marion Ross, who played Mrs.
Oh,
C,
right.
Oddly enough. And I was telling her I was going to shoot with him, and she said, oh, he's amazing. And she told me about him. And I've had a number of friends work with him on different series. I have a friend on Children's Hospital and stuff, and we all have the exact same story. He's just a sweet guy. He's talented. He shows up. He has a good time. He'll tell stories. I always say this because everybody says he's a really sweet guy, and I always say he's the best smelling actor I've ever worked with. He smells fantastic, but really just game for it. If he says yes, he's going to do something, he shows up and he brings it. And he raises everybody else's game around you. You want to do right by him because he's such an icon, but he doesn't wear it on his sleeve. It's not, he sits with everybody. He doesn't kind of shuffle off into the corner and be Henry Winkler. He's part of the ensemble. So he melded perfectly. It was fantastic to have him on set because there wasn't any pretension. He was there to do his job, and we're there to do ours, and let's just all work together and have a good time. And yeah, he's amazing. I would work with him in a heartbeat. I'd work with him the rest of my life if I could.
It's nice to get people in a room together, regardless of what they've accomplished. But when you're in there to do a particular job, everybody's on the same level.
Yes, and that's not always the case when you bring in a name, obviously.
No, it's not.
When someone is a name that comes in and they're just, hey, we're just all here, or we're part of the same production, we're part of the same ensemble, it's refreshing, and sadly it's rare, but he's definitely a rarity, where he just shows up and he's just Henry Winkler, the actor, playing the doctor, It was one of those, moments, one of those top 5 moments in my career where you just are in a room with an icon and you just get to play back and forth with each other and just riff with each other. And that's kind of the moment you live for,
Well, I can't wait to see season 2.
Me either.
This is going to be great.
I hope there is. Fingers crossed.
Well, Joel, listen, it was a lot of fun talking to you, but we've actually gone over at this point, so I'm going to have to cut off the recording.
Absolutely. I thank you for the time. It's my pleasure. Anything else you need, let me know.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my very special guests, Joel Bryant, Tessa Munro, and Mike Stivala. Please watch You Are Nothing on YouTube. It's very, very funny. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.